Hello everybody, my name is Jennifer Maker. Today I am going to show you how to make the Couch Caddy craft organizer and the Great Maker show and tell. I love to make things, can you tell? But I also love to spend time with my family or just relaxing. Now my family is usually hanging out in the living room, so I often take a project with me. In the past, this meant taking and juggling things in my lap or on the arm of my chair or my couch. And I can't tell you how many times I've lost scissors between the couch cushions, or worse yet, accidentally left a pin stuck in my armchair, right? But that's the thing with the past now that I've made my Couch Caddy, which holds all of my tools and pins and little things on the arm of my chair. There are three really cool features about the Couch Caddy that I want to show you. The first is the tool holder, which is this part in the front, which keeps tools close at hand. There's a little pocket in the front and a deeper pocket in the back with dividers, so you can hold like tools and stuff. The pin cushion on the top hold pins and needles, so I stop poking them into the upholstery or pinning them to my shirt. Oh, you know what I'm talking about. And this big bin in the back here, this is where you can put your thread, fabric, vinyl, paper, whatever you're crafting with. And now I can safely get up from a crafting session without stuff stuck to me or scattered around at my feet. And when you're not using it, you can tuck the tool holder right into the bin to keep everything together. You can even use it at your sewing machine to keep all of your threads and bits of fabric from falling on the floor. Now the Couch Caddy is a great beginner to intermediate sewing project, and it only takes an afternoon or an evening to put together. And you can use 2 to 3 coordinating pieces of cotton. Fat quarters work great. Now if you use 3 colors, I recommend that you put your colors in spots A, B, and C on this chart, and use the same color as thread color as B. You don't need much of any one piece of fabric, so you can just use scraps if you want. This is a great scrap project. Now you can make the Couch Caddy on any sewing machine. This is a really basic sewing machine, or you can even sew it by hand. No special tools are required. So let me show you what you need to create this project, and then we'll get started making it. So here's what you need to make this project. You'll want 2 to 3 colors of cotton in coordinating colors, a piece of quilt batting, some heavy interfacing, coordinating thread, a fabric marker, a way to cut your material like a Rotary Blade or even a Cricut, a ruler, and some pins are really helpful. And don't forget the polyfill for your pin cushion. Now you can cut this by hand or cut it by a machine. Let me show you where to get the free pattern for this project. Step 1, get the pattern and cut out your fabric. To get the Couch Caddy pattern, go to jennifermaker.com/couchcaddypattern. My pattern comes in 2 different formats. You can get a printable PDF for cutting by hand or an SVG cut file for cutting with a cutting machine like a Cricut Maker. Choose the one that you want to download and be sure to unzip it to access the contents. Here's what the printable PDF pattern looks like after you download and print it. To piece the printed pattern together, trim and match up the letters along each side. For example, sheet A1 goes with sheet A2, B1 goes with B2, etc. Tape together, then cut out each pattern piece along the solid line. Each pattern tells you how many pieces of fabric to cut, as well as which direction to put any pattern you may have on your fabric. Here's what the SVG cut file for a cutting machine will look like once you've uploaded it to your design software, and in this case, it's Cricut Design Space. Now, the next section is going to be just for Cricut users. If you're not sure how to upload an SVG cut file to Cricut Design Space, watch this helpful video series that I have called SVGs Made Simple. It'll explain everything for you. If you're going to put a washable fabric pen in your Cricut, upload the Couch Caddy marked Jennifer Maker SVG file. If you're not using a pen, upload the Couch Caddy unmarked Jennifer Maker SVG file instead. Important note, when you insert the image in Design Space, please verify the design size before you ungroup. If you're using an iOS device, you'll need to edit the design size. The correct size of the SVG pattern is 26.707 inches wide by 35.332 inches tall. If you're using the marked file with a fabric pen, you'll need to prepare this SVG in Cricut Design Space a bit first. First, ungroup everything. Change each line layer above each fabric cut layer to draw in the line type menu, just as I'm doing here. There'll be several of these to change. And then attach each draw layer to the cut layer immediately below it, just as I'm doing here. Note that the interfacing layer does not have a draw layer. It's just one cut layer. When you're all done, it will look like this. I cut my fabric on my Cricut Maker using the cotton setting, and for the fusible interfacing, I used the fusible interfacing setting. Pretty simple. Both were at normal pressure. So let me show you how I cut this on my Cricut Maker. You're going to need the rotary tool, which is like a rotary blade, but it's for your Cricut Maker. And that goes right into your clamp. And in the other clamp, you put your washable marker, your fabric marker. It goes right in there and it marks the fabric for you. It's so cool. So you'll also need the Pink FabricGrip Mat, and you need the 12 by 24 inch size to properly cut all of the patterns in this tutorial. You just lay your fabric right on the mat, make sure it's nice and smooth and comes to all of the edges, and I like to smooth it down really well, and then you load it into your machine. When you load, make sure you're pressing against the rollers and you press the load button, and then you press start and it cuts it out for you. It starts by marking all of the sew lines for you. You'll note that there are also some arrows that I've in the file. Those are there to remind you to put your fabric in with the pattern in the right direction if your fabric has a pattern, which mine doesn't in this case. So first it marks it with the pen, and then it cuts it with the rotary blade. And when you're all done, you just lift off the pattern pieces. I usually take off the uncut part first and put it into my scrap bin, and then I have my fabric pieces and they're cut exactly to size and they're already marked with my lines for sewing. It's really pretty awesome. And of course you can cut this with scissors or a rotary cutter instead. It's completely your choice. Here's what all the pattern pieces look like after you've cut them out. On the left, you'll see the bit spins layers of 2 cotton layers and 1 interfacing layer. In the middle are the 2 layers of the tool holder at the bottom and the pin cushion layer at the top. And on the right are the 2 pockets, large and small, on the bottom, and a piece of quilt batting at the top. Step 2. Press fabric and fuse. Take the 2 tool pockets and fold them in half, wrong sides together with the short edges meeting. Then press flat with an iron. The pressed sizes will be 7 inches by 4 inches and 7 inches by 5 inches. Set these pockets aside until step 6. Now fuse the heavyweight interfacing to the inside layer of your bits bin. If you're using the same kind of interfacing that I am, be sure the shiny side is against the wrong side of your fabric. Then steam press to fuse it together. Step 3. Stitch the inside layer of the bits bin. Take the inside layer of the bits bin that you just fused, fold it in half with the fused interfacing on the outside and short edges meeting, then stitch together with a 3/8 inch seam allowance along the edge. Press the seam flat. Stitch along the bottom edge at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance between the notched corners, like this. Press the seam flat again. Open your bits bin up a bit and pin the openings together at each corner of the bits bin, just like this. And then stitch across at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance at each corner. Press the seams up towards the sides of the bits bin. You may need to snip the edges of your seam allowance to get the seam to turn up. Now set the stitched inside of your bits bin aside for step 7. Step 4, stitch the outside layer of the bits bin. This is going to stitch together the same way that you did the inner layer, except the only difference is that you don't have the interfacing. But let's go through the steps one more time so you can follow along. Fold it in half with the short edges meeting, then stitch together with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Press the seams flat, and then stitch along the bottom edge at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance between the notched corners. And again, press the seam flat. Open the stitch layer up and press and fold the openings together at each corner of your bit bin, and then stitch across at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Press the seams up towards the sides of the bit bin. You may need to snip the edges of your seam allowance to get the seam to turn up. This is what it looks like when you're all done. Set the stitched outside layer of your bit bin aside for step 7. Step 5, make the pin cushion. Take your pin cushion layer and fold it in half the long way, right sides together, and stitch at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. The fabric should measure 7.5 inches by 3¼ inches after you fold and stitch it. Be sure you fold it the long way or it won't fit properly. Now press the seam of your pincushion layer flat. Turn your pincushion fabric right side out. Make a note of where the seam is and then fold it flat so the seam is in the center. And sew one edge at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Yes, 1/4 of an inch, a little smaller than our normal 3/8 of an inch. Stuff the pin cushion with fiber fill, but don't overstuff it. You want just enough that you can put a pin in and it stays upright. If you have more than that, it gets difficult to create your Couch Caddy. Now sew the other edge of the pin cushion closed, also at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. When you're all done, set the pin cushion aside to use in our next step. Step 6, sew the tool holder. All right, it's time to get that tool holder side together. Start with your piece of batting, your quilt batting, and just lay it flat on your surface. Next, add the outside of your tool holder layer on top of the batting with the right side of the fabric up. Then put the larger of the two folded pockets, the one that's 7 inch by 5 inches after folding it, on top of both of those layers, right side up, matching it to one of the short edges. I'm doing the one on the right side. If your fabric has a pattern, pay attention to how you're positioning it so that your patterns are all going in the right orientation. The raw edges of your folded pocket should be at the edge of the tool holder layers themselves. Now pin everything in place. Stitch down only the pocket dividers on the pocket. Be sure to backstitch at the top of each divider for security. I recommend you do the backstitch just beyond the folded edge for a cleaner look, but you can do whatever works for you. Now put the small folded pocket, the one that's 7 inches by 4 inches after folding, on top of all of those layers, right side up, matching it to the same short edge as the other pocket. Again, be mindful of any fabric patterns that you might have. The raw edges of the small folded pocket should meet with the raw edges of the large pocket and your tool holder. Now add the pin cushion about 1 inch from the edge on the left side here. So you want to put it on the edge that's opposite from the pockets. Again, being mindful of any fabric patterns that you have. Then pin everything in place. Finally, put the inside layer of your tool holder on top of everything, right side down and pin in place. You'll have to push the pin cushion a little bit flat, but it'll work out fine. Now that you've got all your layers together, just stitch around the 2 long edges plus the short edge with the pocket at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Be sure to leave the end near the pin cushion open and unsewn so you can use it to turn everything right side out. Here's a tip. When you're stitching over the ends of the pin cushion and the pocket edges, be sure to go slowly. There's a lot of layers here. Now when you're all done, clip the corners so that you have nice, clean, neat corners, and turn the tool holder right side out, being careful to only turn the inside layer and not the tool pockets. You can use your fingernail, the tip of a pair of scissors, or a chopstick to push the corners out so that they look like corners and not weird round edges. Now once your tool holder is turned right side out, top stitch along each side of your tool holder from the very top down to where the top pocket starts for neatness. And now press everything flat. Step 7, attach the bit spin to the tool holder. This is the last step. Start by locating the center top of the tool holder and place a pin there. You can just briefly fold the center top in half to find the right spot for the pin. Put the pin in from the top. Fold the tool holder in half so the pin is facing you and is oriented up, and put it into the inside layer of the bit spin so the pin is near the back center seam. Then match the pin with the center seam of the bit spin and pin the raw edge of the tool holder to the back of the inside layer bit spin. Double check that you're pinning your layers together in the same way that I am. So you're putting the right side of the tool holder against the right side of the inside layer of the bit spin, just like this. Now it's time to sew these two together. To do this, first remove your sewing machine's extension table to access the free arm. Then place the pinned layers over the free arm and stitch just along the tool holder with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Yes, the pin cushion will make this a little tricky to slide the fabric onto the free arm, but it's entirely doable. Once these two are sewn together, flip the inside bit bins lining layer so its fabric is right side out. Do not forget to do this step. I forgot the first time I did this, and then I had to fix everything. Put the inside lining layer of the bit spin into the outside layer of the bit spin, matching the seams. The outside layer should still be inside out. You want to put right sides together here and make sure the seams match. Double check that for sure. Now fold the tool holder all the way in between the layers of the bit spin. This is also super important. Pin everything together along the top edge of the bit spin. When you get to the section with the tool holder, put a pin in at 1 inch from the right edge. We'll call this point A, and 1 inch from the left edge. We'll call this point Z. But do not pin in between these two. This unpinned area needs to remain unsewn for now, as you'll use it to turn everything right side out. Slip the pinned layers over your free arm of your sewing machine and position the layers so the section with the tool holder is under your needle at point Z, just like I'm doing here. Stitch around the top of the bit spin from point Z all the way around to point A at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, being careful not to stitch beyond point A. You have to leave that section there in the middle unsewn. Now pull your tool holder through that opening that you left unsewn. Go slowly and gently so you don't stretch out your seams. With the tool holder pulled out, pull the bit spin right side out. Now push the inside lining layer into the outer layer, being sure to push the corners out to match up with the outer layer. Flip everything over to reveal the unsewn opening. Fold the edge of the opening under and pin it in place. Now just top stitch along the upper edge of the bit spin . And when you get to the pinned opening, sew it closed too. And give everything one more good pressing to make it look crisp, and you are done. Isn't this cool? You can fill your Couch Caddy craft organizer with your favorite tools, drape it over an armchair or couch, and have fun. When you're not using your Couch Caddy organizer in a chair, you can tuck the tool holder edge under the feet of your sewing machine and use it to catch threads and hold pins there too. It's super versatile. This is an awesome organizer to have really for any craft that you do so that you could move around and be comfortable while you make things. I am in love with this Couch Caddy, and I hope that this tutorial has inspired you to make one too. You'll feel so much more mobile once you have one of your own. Now, if you have any questions at all about making the Couch Caddy, check my full step-by-step photo tutorial and material and tool list for this project over at jennifermaker.com/couchcaddy. And if you have questions that aren't answered over in that tutorial, please come join my Facebook group at jennifermaker.com/sewing-group and post your questions there. This is also the perfect place to show photos of your finished caddies so you can inspire others. To learn more about the Cricut Maker cutting machine that I showed in this tutorial and how it cuts fabric, among many other things, check out my maker tutorials at jennifermaker.com/Cricut Maker. Now, if you don't have a Cricut yet but really want one, you can win one in my monthly Cricut giveaway. Enter at jennifermaker.com/Cricut giveaway. And if you need a little help sewing, I have a sewing shortcuts ebook filled with sewing cheat sheets, charts, diagrams, hacks, tips, tricks, everything from how to thread a sewing machine and how to tell what kind of needle that you have or which kind you need to have, to understanding fabric types and how to troubleshoot your sewing machine. It also includes the print and cut stickers for my sewing machine that you saw in this video. I love labeling things. You can get your own copy at sewingshortcuts.com. I had a blast making this with you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and have fun sewing and crafting. Until next time, this is Jennifer Maker reminding you to craft a life you love.